It's no secret that The Boys Season 4 didn't meet expectations. Even through all of its character assassination, needless side stories, reckless use of sexual themes, I could go on. One criticism seems to have trumped all. The Boys Season 4 is way too political. Or, if I were someone in my comments section, The Boys has gone woke, and in doing so, has alienated at least half of its audience. If I were to divide up this section of the fan base into groups, it would look a little something like this. There's that conservative fan who's become disenfranchised with The Boys because they feel like they're being attacked by the show or that they become the butt of the joke. And there's also that fan that believes that how insistent the show has become on sending a message has become detrimental to the show's quality. And I think this is the much more interesting opinion because you don't necessarily have to be conservative in order to have it. In this video, I am of course going to be delving into what's so political about The Boys Season 4, but I'm mostly going to be covering the why. Why is The Boys Season 4 the way that it is? Has The Boys always been so politically left-leaning, or did it used to play both sides? You'll learn all this and more on this episode of NOLOAF. I welcome you all to the overt politics of The Boys Season 4. Let's make this very clear. The Boys has always been political. The Boys in itself is a comic book adaptation, and the original comic book is already political. So why wouldn't a live-action adaptation be the same? The Boys comic was created and released during the mid-2000s. This being the case, it spoke to issues prevalent in the United States during that decade. For example, let's go ahead and look at this panel. This is The Boys equivalent of 9/11, a subject incredibly topical at the time considering it had only happened 5 years ago and the Bush administration was still going strong. The Boys series has a similar chain of events, of a transoceanic flight being hijacked by Muslim-coded terrorists to which then the save is then botched by Homelander. The Boys series even remembers its roots, as following this event, Homelander presents a speech inspired by George W. Bush's speech after 9/11.
We hear you, Homelander!
And I hear you, brother! I hear you!
And the world
Here's you! And very, very soon, my friend, whoever did this to us will hear from all of us!
I can hear you. I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
But The Boys series takes place in the modern day, so this couldn't be their version of 9/11. The point is, The Boys series strayed from the source material in order for its events to make sense in the modern day. And considering that The Boys released in 2019 and has been steadily releasing since then, wouldn't it make sense for The Boys to adapt and speak on topical issues of the 2020s? No one seemed to have a problem with the politics of The Boys until they started discussing political issues that became more prevalent after the 2010s. Those issues being a major plot point within Starlight's story this season. Starlight's story throughout The Boys Season 4 is what I believe to be the culprit for why people think the series has become too political. Season 4 sees Starlight putting back on the suit after she quit the Seven to act as a symbol of hope for the Starlight House. Having been in place in Season 3, the perception of the Starlight House quickly turned sour after Homelander publicly refused to donate $10 million to their cause.
No. Starlight lied to you just now. She did. I don't make mistakes. I'm not just like the rest of you. I'm stronger. I'm smarter. I'm better.
The belligerent tirade that he then went on would go on to radicalize many of his followers into turning them against Vaughn and anything that opposed Homelander, and by proxy, affecting Starlight. This team of home teamers quickly began to paint Starlight's efforts at the Starlight House in a negative light.
So, I guess you've all heard about Starlight's alleged involvement with a human trafficking ring? Yeah. And I suppose it's pure coincidence that she opened the Starlight House for runaway teens?
These allegations hold no merit whatsoever and are not only reckless but dangerous, as in episode 3 of season 4, a home teamer shows up to the Starlight House brandishing a gun demanding for, quote, the children stuck in the basement to be let out.
Hey, welcome to Starlight House. Can I help you? Where are they? I'm sorry, who? Where are the kids? The ones in the basement.
We don't have a basement.
Bullshit. What are you selling? Cheese, pizza, CP, child porn?
Okay,
Stay back.
There, of course, aren't any children stuck at the Starlight House. There isn't any validity to the allegations Homelander and Firecracker, one of two major additions to the cast this season, throw towards Starlight and her organization. But it still doesn't dampen the destructive nature of conspiracy theories and how easily those that are desperate, lost, or angry can fall into their grasp.
Sell purpose. These people got nothing. Maybe they lost a job or a house or a kid to Oxy. Politicians don't give a shit. Mainstream media tells them to be ashamed of their skin color, so I want to bring them together, tell them a story, give them a purpose.
I think this event is actually inspired by something that happened in real life. In 2017, Edgar Madison Welsh brought an AR-15 assault rifle to Comet, a pizzeria located in Washington, D.C. He went there with the intent of investigating Pizzagate, and while inside Comet, Edgar pointed a gun at an employee and fired a shot. The employee was thankfully not hit, however, and was then able to escape. No one was hurt. The conspiracy theory that Edgar Welsh wholeheartedly believed Pizzagate is eerily similar to allegations Firecracker parrots towards Starlight, except Pizzagate in our world, refers to the belief that the Democratic Party is linked to an underground child trafficking ring. Making baseless, reckless, conspiratorial claims like this is right up the alley for Firecracker, any conspiracy theory out there. Firecracker believes and parrots on her Truth Bomb podcast, and when she gets recruited by Vought to premiere her show on the Vought News Network, Firecracker takes aim at Starlight and exposes her for having an abortion.
She found out that she was pregnant and she had an abortion.
Abortion and trans people have existed for as long as humanity has, yet because of things such as Roe vs. Wade being overturned, or LGBTQ+ people being used as scapegoats for society's greater issues, these matters are as relevant as ever. Season 1 spoke about issues plaguing the United States during the 2000s, and Season 4 is doing the same for issues prominent within the 2020s. Take note of the language used.
Black Lives Matter.
Abortion.
Critical soup theory.
The alt soup movement.
Vaccines.
People who don't want these words to be said or concepts acknowledged want The Boys to simply remain as only entertainment, and not remain and continue to be what it always has been, a political social issue drama disguised as a superhero action series. The notion that The Boys has only recently become political is incredibly tone deaf. Still though, I have to give credit where credit is due. I'm sure there's a decent portion of The Boys' conservative fanbase who knew from the jump what the show's agenda was and still enjoyed it in spite of its politics because of its captivating storyline. Another prevalent sentiment I've heard that I want to touch on comes from those who claim to be centrist, saying that they enjoyed The Boys because it quote-unquote made fun of both sides in terms of the political spectrum. Having seen Season 4, the political stance that The Boys takes has become abundantly clear. Did The Boys previously feign being a more balanced, centrist series prior to Season 4 though? The show has oftentimes poked fun at things such as performance activism and the issue of representation. These are typical progressive liberal issues, and I'll give you that. It did help The Boys feign a less biased perspective earlier on, but it still pales in comparison with how critical the show has always been of the right and how it characterizes its right-leaning characters. It's not like the liberal stance that The Boys has taken in Season 4 has come out of nowhere. From the very beginning, Starlight, for example, has been propped up to be this feminist, socially conscious figure. She's quickly characterized to be one of the good ones, unlike the rest of the Soups and Vought who regularly engage in debauchery or act on their own self-interest. Starlight's optimistic outlook on life is quickly shattered though, as she's raped by the Deep in The Boys Season 1, an act of cruelty that a lot of women unfortunately know all too well. Starlight's story in The Boys speaks to the Me Too movement that began in 2006 and persists even to this day, of a movement trying to bring attention to the rampant and unchecked sexual abuse women experience in the workplace or otherwise male-dominated spaces. It makes sense that a character that went through an event like this would then later form a non-profit organization in order to ensure things like this don't happen to others, and it also makes sense for this character to then be propped up against someone that promotes and regularly engages in bigotry, xenophobia, and pure racism, this being Homelander. I've always found the perception that Homelander is an anti-hero to be an odd one. Sure, Homelander may save people, but he's a hero in name only. He doesn't do it out of the kindness of his heart. It's simply to maintain an image. The tragedy of the crash of Transoceanic Flight 37 showed us this to a T. In Season 1, Homelander wanted to be in the good graces of everybody, but through his relationship with Stormfront in Season 2, he realized that being loved by everyone is just not realistic, and that he needs to instead appeal to what people hate. And this is when he starts to push xenophobic propaganda about immigrants.
Right before these godless, inhuman supervillains started pouring across our borders and dragging us down into their mud.
By the time Season 3 rolls around, Homelander has completely stopped trying to put on an affair. Threatening to blackmail Homelander using the Flight 37 video worked for so long until a flip switch in Homelander's head and he realized he could get away with whatever he wanted.
Do I need to remind you of the Flight 37 video?
Go ahead. Release it. I mean, sure, I'll lose everything, but then I'll have nothing to lose.
And he did exactly this in the Season 3 finale where he murdered a man in broad daylight. Expecting the crowd to abruptly turn into chaos, Homelander winces, only to be surprised by them giving him a round of applause. They didn't even pretend to ignore it. They liked it and even encouraged it. And because of this, Homelander realizes he can say and do anything.
They save people, they cheer. Fucking kill people, they cheer.
He's reached a point in his career and celebrity where he's become invaluable. And it was this event that confirmed for me and a lot of other people that Homelander is in part a representation of Donald Trump.
They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters. So
this event of Homelander killing a Starlighter is a direct reference to a quote said by Donald Trump. And this isn't the first time that The Boys alluded to Homelander being a lot like him.
Hey, when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the
Donald Trump has a history of sexual misconduct, with multiple sexual assault allegations and charges that haven't seemed to affect his reputation. This again reminds me of Homelander, and the fact that he raped Rebecca to absolutely no consequences. This is what men in positions of power do. They don't respect women as people and see them only as objects. They hate women and they hate their autonomy. This is why I think abortion, or to be exact, Starlight's abortion, was made to be such a prominent plot point in season 4, as it helped the boys further demonize characters aligning with right and other conservative values, of furthering the divide between Starlighters and home teamers, a direct representation of liberals and conservatives in our world. When I conceptualized this video, I was originally going to entertain the notion that The Boys was more of a centrist series. I was going to have an entire section dedicated to how VOT is very much like Disney, and how their efforts of diversity and inclusion have felt forced and unnecessary for these past couple years. These companies, of course, are still businesses at the end of the day. They don't actually care about diversity, and are simply doing so to appease shareholders and to widen their demographics in order to increase their product's 4-quadrant appeal. To find out The Boys' actual agenda, you could comb through its entire plotline, the entire cast of characters, and all the references it makes to real life. But in reality, you don't even have to watch The Boys to find out its political ideology. You can instead just look at its creator, Eric Kripke. Eric Kripke is the showrunner for The Boys, and played a large part in advocating for The Boys to be adapted into a series rather than a film. He's been on record saying that The Boys is his most favorite comic book, and it's easy to see the enormous amount of respect he has for The Boys comics creator, Garth Ennis. In an interview with Showbiz Junkies held at New York Comic Con 2018, Kripke spoke on being given the honor to adapt The Boys to live action. He said that after the project had been greenlit and he was given the job, Kripke took Ennis out to dinner so he could pick his brain a little bit. Kripke said it was here when he asked Ennis himself why he created The Boys.
He said, I was really interested about what would happen if you combine the worst of celebrity with the worst of politics.
As you can see, The Boys' original comic in itself is inherently political. It's not like these politics were retroactively added in on behalf of Kripke, but that he simply took and updated them so that they would make sense in a modern context. Kripke makes sure not to forget one of the things that made The Boys so popular though, that it's a more grounded story about superheroes playing off people's preconceived notions of Marvel and DC. After throwing shots at Marvel, he goes on to talk about how ingrained superheroes have become in our society and the newfound role they play in our entertainment.
The superhero myth is so big and so sprawling now, and it's about so many things. That you can use the superheroes. It was like an endless toy box.
He goes on to say that you can use superheroes to talk about basically anything.
We were like, okay, we're going to use it to talk about politics. Okay, great. We're going to use it to talk about the military. Okay, great. Then we were like, wait, we're using it to talk about movie stars. And wait, now we're talking about professional athletes.
And like Ennis, Kripke seemed especially interested in the implications of combining politics and celebrity. So much so that he often alludes to and even name drops the president at the time, Donald Trump.
Every single thing you wanted to poke fun at works when you put a superhero in it in front instead of Lance Armstrong, Donald Trump, Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie. It all works.
The more and more interviews I watched with Kripke, the more I realized Kripke pretty much takes a liberal stance on almost every topic imaginable. And for that reason, it makes sense as to why he would have such a bone to pick with the authoritarian presenting as celebrity that Donald Trump really is. Coding Homelander to be a racist, xenophobic narcissist all this time has been no coincidence. And if all those references to Trump made by this series still won't convince you that The Boys is political or give you a sense as to how The Boys creator feels about Donald Trump, I don't know what will. The Boys isn't and has never been South Park. It's never been this centrist, unbiased series that aims to make fun of both sides. And if you don't have the resolve to take being made fun of by a television show, maybe you've been the snowflake this entire time. This has been NOLOAF. Until next time.